Hello and welcome to the KouLouiseAcademy YouTube channel. So in today's video, I will take you through the process of how you can install Windows Server 2022 in your virtual environment. This video is going to be longer than the normal videos I do on the channel. And the reason is this video is divided into several parts. So make sure to watch the video from start to end to get a full understanding of the different parts of the video. So the very first part of the video, I'll walk you through the process of how you can activate Microsoft Hyper-V on your Windows computer. After doing that, the next phase is to create a virtual machine in Hyper-V and then connect the Microsoft Windows Server 2022 image to that virtual computer and walk you through the entire process of installing Windows Server 2022. The next part of the video, because I realized that other people may have preference for different hypervisor. So what I did was to walk you through the process of installing the Oracle VirtualBox, which is another type 2 hypervisor that you can use. So I'll walk you through the process of how to download that and install it on your Windows computer, how you can create a virtual machine, and how you can connect the ISO image of your Windows Server 2022 to your Oracle VirtualBox, and then I'll walk you through the process of how you can boot from that Windows Server ISO image. But because in the very first part, I'll walk you through the entire installation of the Windows Server 2022, so in the second part, I'll only boot up from the DVD. So I don't repeat that process of installing Windows Server 2022 again. So you have to watch the very first part from start to end so that you can understand how to install Server 2022. And in the third part of this video, I'll walk you through the process of how you can download and install VMware Workstation for free. And then I'll take you through how you can create a virtual machine within VMware Workstation Pro and how you can connect your Microsoft Windows Server ISO image to that virtual machine and how you can boot up from that virtual image. So again, there's a certain part of the video also where I walk you through the process of downloading the Windows Server 2022 ISO image from the Microsoft website. Because this video is going to be longer than the usual videos on the channel, so I will make sure to leave in the video description down below a timestamp of the different parts of the video so that you can hop around the video and watch the part of the video that interests you. But what I recommend is that you watch the video from start to end so that you can get a full understanding of what is in the video. So without further ado, let's go straight into the video. We will begin this video by coming to the start button and clicking on it in the bottom left, and in the search, you type appwiz.cpl. And then you click on this first option that has Control Panel Attend. When this window opens up, so I want you to come to the top left and click on Turn Windows Features On or Off. So you click that. And then in the list, you will come to Hyper-V. For you, if you don't have Hyper-V already installed, this little checkbox will be unchecked. So what you want to do here is just click in this checkbox, and then after that, you click on OK. So by clicking on OK, it will turn on the Hyper-V features and will perform some installation of the different things that need to be installed. And then the next stage will be to restart your computer. So once you restart your computer, then you can move on to the next phase of the video. All right, so my computer has successfully restarted. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open Hyper Virtualization. So I will click in the search at the bottom left, and I'll just type the word Hyper. And then now you can see Hyper-V Manager. So I'm just going to click on Hyper-V Manager. So this will open the Hyper-V Manager window. So once the Hyper-V Manager opens on my computer, what you will notice at the top left, you'll see the name of my computer. So my computer name is KLA. So this name will vary based on the name of your computer. So whatever the name of your computer is, that would be the name of this computer in the top left. So what you want to do is to right-click on your computer name and come to New and click on Virtual Machine to open the Virtual Machine wizard. So when the Virtual Machine wizard opens, we click on Next. And this next screen is asking you to name your virtual machine. The virtual machine is actually a bunch of files that are saved on your computer. So whatever name you put on the screen will just simply be the name of the virtual machine file. So this has nothing to do with the host name. So the host name or the computer name will be defined when we have already installed Windows Server 2022, or it could be a different version of an operating system. So this is going to be our first domain controller. So I'm just going to use DC01, DC for domain controller and 01 for our first domain controller. If you notice right below, it shows you a location on drive C in program data /Microsoft/Windows in Hyper-V. This is where by default the files are going to be saved. So I'm just going to keep it to the default, or you can change this location if you want to. So if I want to change this location, what I will do, I will click on Store and I will click on Browse. And then I can actually go and change the location. So let's say I come to this PC. I have 2 volumes. So I'll just double click drive D. And then at this place, I can just right click here and create a folder. So I'm going to create a folder. I will name this folder AZ-800. So I'll name it after the exam. So I will press enter and press enter again. It will open that folder. And then what I want to do is to create another folder within that folder. So a subfolder. So I will right click that and come to new and say folder. And I'm going to name this folder DC01 and press enter and press enter. So now I'm within that folder and I'm going to say select folder. So what I'm doing is I'm going to save all of the files that pertain to DC01 in that folder DC01. When I create another domain controller, DC02, I will create another folder there called DC02 and put all of the files in there. When I install a Windows 11 client or Windows 10 client, I will name it based on the name of the Windows 10 or Windows 11 client, just for me to easily identify where on my computer a particular VM files are saved. So I'll click on Next. And then at the next screen, we are being prompted to select the type of VM that we're going to use. So Generation 1 tells you that this is a VM that supports both 32-bit operating system and 64-bit operating system. So the last time we had a server that was 32-bit was with Windows 2008 server. So nowadays, all of the server operating systems are 64-bit. So it makes more sense for us to choose Generation 2 because Generation 2 has more features and capabilities that Generation 1 doesn't have. So I'm just going to click on Generation 2 and I'll go to Next. On this next screen, we are given a default memory for our server 2022 and we have 4 GB. But within the wizard, it doesn't put the memory in gigabyte, but it put it in megabyte. So this is simply 4 GB is 4 multiplied by 1024 because 1024 megabyte is equal to 1 gigabyte. So 4 times 1024 will give us 4096. So I'm just going to keep it to that default. And then there's this option called use dynamic memory for this virtual machine. What this means is If the virtual machine requires less memory, it will automatically be assigned less memory. If it requires more memory, it will dynamically assign more memory to the virtual machine. But the maximum limit will be 4 gigabyte or 4096 megabyte. So that's what it means. So if I change that memory size to 2 gigabyte, it means that the maximum memory that can be allocated to this virtual machine will be 2 gigabyte. So I'm just going to keep it to the default and I'll click on next. So the next screen is asking me to connect to of network. For now, I will keep it to not connected, and later on, I will show you how we can create a virtual switch and then we can connect it. But we can still do it within. So you can either connect it to default switch, but I don't want to connect it to the default switch because I want to show you something when it comes to how to set up a virtual switch. So I'll keep it to not connected and I will click on next. So now this is where it's going to save the virtual hard drive file. So as I said, virtual machine are files, right? It's just a use of software to emulate a hardware environment. So by default is allocating 127 gigabyte to our virtual machine hard drive size. This is not going to occupy 127 gig of my hard drive. What this is saying is that similar to the memory, if the virtual machine requires more size or more space, hard drive space, it's going to continue to use up to 127 gigabyte. So as long as I'm not installing a lot of things on my virtual machine, I wouldn't be consuming 127 gigabyte. So I'm just going to keep it to the default and just keep it to the default name that it has given this virtual hard drive. And then you can see here it has the second option to use an existing hard drive. So this is where maybe I had a virtual machine on another computer and copy the virtual hard drive of that virtual machine and bring it to this computer. I can just connect that virtual hard drive to this and boot up this computer from that virtual hard drive. In our case, we do not have an existing virtual hard drive. So what are we going to do is we're just going to keep it to create a hard drive and go to next. At this place is asking us, do you want to install the operating system? So you can browse to where you can connect the ISO or you can install an operating system later. So I'm just going to keep it to install an operating system later. But if you want to browse, we can click on the second option and browse to the ISO or the image file of our Windows Server 2022. So right now, I'll keep it to install an operating system later, and I will click on next. So at this last screen is just giving us a summary of all of the options that we have selected for our virtual machine. We are okay with these settings, so we'll just click on finish. We'll give it a few seconds and allow it to create the virtual machine. All right, so we have successfully created our virtual machine. So I'm just going to come to the top left and click on my computer name. And once I click on my computer name, in the middle of the screen, you can see DC01. So we have created the virtual machine. And when you look at the state, is off. So when I click on this virtual machine, on my far right, I can see settings on action. So these are different things I can do with this virtual machine. So I'm just going to come here and click on Virtual Switch Manager. So I will click on Virtual Switch Manager, and then it's going to open the Virtual Switch Manager. So I'm going to create a virtual switch. When you are creating a virtual switch in Hyper-V, we have three options, as you can see right in the middle of the screen. So the good thing with it is when you click on each name, it tells you what that means. So for example, private means if we create a private switch, it means that only virtual machines within this Hyper-V manager will be able to connect or communicate with each other on the network. So we are keeping the communication between virtual machine private. When we say eternal, what it means is that the virtual machines that we would create within Hyper-V manager will be able to communicate with each other on the network, as well as they will be able to also communicate with my host computer or with your host computer. So it could be a laptop you're using or a desktop. The virtual machines will be able to communicate with that laptop or that desktop. That's what eternal means. External simply means that the virtual machines will communicate among themselves. They will be able to communicate with my host computer. And because my host computer, if that host computer is having access to the internet, the virtual machine will also be able to connect to the internet. So if you want your virtual machine to have internet access as well as communicate with your host computer and communicate with other virtual machine, then you would choose external. If you just want communication between virtual machines and then virtual machine and your host computer, you choose eternal. If you just want to limit the communication on the network with just the virtual machine, then you choose private. Why would you want to use eternal, for example, or external, for example? So let's take the first one, eternal. Eternal, why you want the virtual machine to be able to connect or communicate with your host computer is when you have some files on your host computer that you want to share with the virtual machine, because they are on an eternal switch. All of your host computer, if you grant them access, or if you grant access to the user on the virtual machine, they will be able to communicate with your host computer, and they can copy files in between virtual machine from the host computer to your virtual machine, and vice versa. So they'll be able to do those kind of things, right? So let's suppose that we are doing a lab that we want to set up a Windows update server, right? So this update server, what it does is it goes to the internet and download updates and keep it within its database. And then it uses the updates to update all of the client computers on your network, or all of the computer on your network, right? So in that case, we would need to put it on external so that that server, or is called WSOS, Windows Server Update Services. So that WSOS, if that WSOS is connected to an external switch, it will use the internet connection of your host computer and download the updates so that it can keep it within its database and uses it to update all of the computers on your network. So those are reasons why you will want to choose a particular option over the other. So for now, we will just keep it to external, and then we'll click on create virtual switch. So with this virtual switch, we just can change the name to external. And the reason why you want to put the name to external, so that when you create private switch, eternal switch, once you set the name accordingly, then you can know, okay, this switch is the external switch, this is a private switch, and this is the eternal switch. So give it a name that will make you to distinguish between which switch it is. So I'm just going to name it external. Okay. Then, yeah, external switch needs to connect to my laptop, or it could be your desktop, for example, or your laptop. So your laptop will have both built-in wireless network card as well as a local area network card. So you have to choose which of those network cards has the internet access. for my case, my internet access on my laptop is happening through my wireless. So when I click on this drop down arrow, I'm going to choose my wireless card, which is the second option. So I will choose that. And then I will click on apply. And then I will say yes, because it's going to disrupt my network, because it's going to restart the network, right? So it just gives me a warning that I will have some disruption in my network. I'm okay with that. I will click on yes. And then it's going to create the virtual switch. So I'll give it a few seconds and allow it to complete, and it has completed. So I'll click on OK. So once I click on OK, now I need to connect this virtual machine to that switch that I just created. Remember, we didn't connect it. We left it to not connected. So with the virtual machine highlighted, I will come to my right on DC01. I will click on settings. So when I click on settings, this is the settings of my DC01 virtual machine. So you can see in the top left, the name is the DC01, telling me that these are the settings that pertain to DC01. So what I want to do here is to go down to the network adapter and click on it. And as you can see, the status is saying not connected. So what I want to do is to come to virtual switch, click on virtual switch, and choose external, which is the switch that we created. So I will click that, and I will click on apply, and I will click on OK. So I have successfully connected that virtual computer to this virtual switch that we created. The next thing I want to do is to connect the virtual computer to the ISO, or the image file for Windows Server 2022, because that's what we want to install on this virtual computer, right? So with the DC01 still highlighted, what I want to do is to go to my right and click on settings. So I could have just stayed there when I connected it to the virtual switch. I could have just picked the other settings for the virtual DVD-ROM, but I mistakenly I forgot and I clicked on OK. So I'm just repeating the same thing. So what I want to do here is, I'm still at the settings of this virtual computer that we created, DC01, as you can see in the top left. So I will come to SCSI controller and click on SCSI controller. Right now, what I notice is that this virtual computer doesn't have a DVD drive. So I will click on SCSI controller, and I have options to add a SCSI controller. So I'm just going to click on DVD drive, which is the second option, and I will click on add, and it's going to add a DVD drive. As we notice here, it already had the hard drive that we selected during the installation, which was 127 gigabyte, right? So it already had a hard drive, so we needed to add a DVD. So the DVD drive has been added, but as you can see, the DVD drive is empty, right? So when I click on the DVD drive, I will come and click on image file. So once I click on image file, I will click on browse, and then I'll go to drive D on my computer. And then what I would do is go to downloads. Once I go to downloads, I have two folders here. So I have one called the KLA ISO images. So I'm just going to double click that, and these are all the images that I have already downloaded. So I'm going to click on Windows Server 2022, and then I will click on open, and then that image has been connected to my virtual server. So I'll click on apply, and then I'll click on OK. So now that we have successfully connected our ISO image to this virtual machine, what I'm going to do is, before I start the installation, I'm just going to go to the browser and show you how you could download the ISO image. So I will click on my browser. I will just close all of these tabs. And then in this address bar, I'm just going to say download Windows Server 2022 and press enter. So I will click on this first link from Microsoft. As you can see, Microsoft.com. And then we see Evaluation Center. So I'm just going to click on this. It's going to come to this page, and because my primary language is English, so I'm just going to come to English United States and click on ISO downloads and click on 64-bit edition to download. If I just wanted it already installed, I could have just downloaded a virtual hard drive disk. So if I have used this VHD option, when we were creating the virtual machine in the wizard, there was a place to connect an existing virtual hard disk. If we had selected this virtual hard disk to download it, we're going to use that to connect. But for you, you should download the ISO, not the VHD. So depending on your language, again, when you speak Chinese, you download what is applicable to you. If it is French, German, whatever the language is, make sure to download that language. Okay, and then when you look at the prerequisite, it tells you that we will be able to use this for 180 days for evaluation. So it gives you other additional information. So yes, that's how I got the ISO image. So I'm just going to go to my DC01, double click on this to open the screen, and I will click on Start to start the virtual computer. But before I start though, sometimes it prompts you to press any key to boot from the DVD, but it doesn't take so long, and then it will switch to try to boot from the network. So what I recommend is just keep your one finger on one of the keys, and then when you press start, just be prepared to press any key to boot from your DVD drive. So I'm just going to keep my finger on any key, and I'll press start, and then I press any key. So I'm just going to maximize this. I will give it a few seconds and see what happens. Okay, so we're just going to press enter for Windows setup for the boot manager, and then it's going to begin the installation. So here is the installation for Windows Server 2022. So because I downloaded my ISO as English US, so I don't have other options to switch to another language, because this ISO image is just English US. It's not a multi-language ISO image. So I'm going to keep all of these to these defaults, and I will click on next. So at this stage, if I have an existing operating system, which is an existing Windows Server 2022, that for some reason, some of the files got corrupted and I'm experiencing challenges restarting that computer, what I can do is to use the Windows Server 2022, boot up that server, and when I come here, instead of clicking on install, I'm just going to click on repair your computer, and then that will just use the DVD and repair all of your files and resolve the problem for you. In our case, we don't have an existing operating system right now, so we're just going to click on install now. We'll give it a few seconds and allow that to load up. So on this next screen, what you will notice that there are two editions that are listed here for Windows Server 2022. We have 2022 standard edition, and then we have data center edition. But you'll notice there are two of each. The ones that have desktop experience in the name will install 2022 with all of the icons, the desktop background, and the start menu. But if you just use the other two, it will install the operating system as a command line operating system. So for us, we are interested in having the icons and the desktop. So we're just going to go for the data center desktop experience. So we'll click that and we'll go to next. So next, we are taken to the end user's license agreement. Make sure to read all of the terms and conditions and then click on accept, and then you can go to next. At this stage, we have two options. If we have an existing operating system, we can choose to upgrade, or for us, we don't have an existing operating system. So we'll say install Microsoft Server operating system only. So we'll choose this option. And then this is our hard drive. So we will just install it on the entire hard drive. So we'll keep it to that hard drives being selected, and we'll go to next. And then it's going to begin the installation. So I'm going to pause the video and allow it to complete. And once that is done, we're going to look at post-installation configuration of Windows Server 2022. So the installation has completed. It's going to restart. So I can either click on restart now, or I can just allow it to restart. All right, so we have successfully installed Windows Server 2022 within Microsoft Hyper-V. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to install Windows Server 2022 in Oracle VirtualBox. So I will click on New tab and I will just say download Oracle VirtualBox. And I'll press enter and it will show me the VirtualBox download. So once I found the Oracle VirtualBox, which is the very first option that came up, I will click on download and it will take me to the download page. And then now it is giving me options, right? So there are different versions of the installation for VirtualBox. My computer is a Windows 11, so it's a Windows host. So I'll click on Windows host. So now it gives me the option to download. I'm going to click on start download and I will click on yes to replace it, and I will allow it to download. So now it has downloaded. I will click on open to open it, and I will just click on yes. So now we have the wizard for Oracle VirtualBox. So we'll click on next. And then we have to accept the end user license agreement, and then we'll click on next. And then it gives us a summary of the things it's going to install. We click on next. And then they say proceed with installation now. So it even tells us that it's going to temporarily disconnect our network card, similar to what happened with Hyper-V. We are okay with that, so we'll say yes. And then once we come to the next screen, it's telling us that it's going to install some dependency for Python. So we're just going to say yes. And then these are all of the shortcuts it's going to create. I don't like icons on my desktop, so I'm just going to uncheck the desktop one, and I'll click on next. And now I'll click on install. All right, so we have successfully installed Oracle VirtualBox. I'll click on Finish, and then what I will do, I will come in the Start and search for VirtualBox. I will click on Oracle VirtualBox. It's going to open the Oracle VirtualBox, and now I had existing virtual machine from Oracle. But for you, you wouldn't have any of these virtual machine. It would just be plain and empty. So what you do, you click on New, and then you will put the same thing like I did, DC01. So I'm just going to say domain controller 01, just so I avoid conflict with my existing DC01. So it's telling me the default folder where it's going to save this virtual machine. I'm okay. The type of operating system I'm going to install is Windows, so I'm okay with that. I'm not going to install Windows 11. I'm going to install Server 2022. So I'm going to look in the list for Server 2022, which I see. I'm going to click that. And then after choosing Server 2022, the next thing I can come to, if I wanted to do an unattended installation, I could fill this place where you put in the product key, the host name, and all of those things, and we'll do that for you. We don't want to do this for now. We'll leave that. We'll come to the hardware, and it has given 2 GB of memory to my Windows Server 2022. If we want to increase it, we can increase it from here. And then it's telling us that processor, I have 1 core processor. I'm just going to increase that to 2 for better performance. And then for the hard drive, I'm going to expand this. And let us see. By default, it has given it 50 GB. So it's similar to how the Hyper-V assigned the hard drive. But for Hyper-V, the default was 127 GB. For here, it's 50 GB. So we can increase it or not increase it. It depends on all that we want to install on there. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to give it the same 127 gig. And then I'm just going to click on Finish. So now that I've successfully created this domain controller machine on Oracle VirtualBox, what I want to do is to come here to Storage and click on Storage. So as storage, I will come to the DVD drive, which is what we see here is empty. Just like with Hyper-V, it was empty. So you want to click on it, and you come to the optical drive to your right-hand side, and to the very right of that, you click this little blue, and then you choose a disk file. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to open my folder. I'm going to choose Windows Server 2022, and I'm going to click on OK. All right, so as you can see on our storage, on our controller SATA, we have our hard drive, which is 127 gig as we define it. And then we have the second SATA port is the optical drive, which is the external DVD that we created. So it has been successfully connected. So we're just going to keep it highlighted to our left, and then we click on Start, and then we'll click on OK. And then we'll give it a few seconds. So I'm just going to come to my Hyper-V and just pause this one for now. And then close it. So we can see an error on the right saying that it terminated unexpectedly. So I'm just going to go to Hyper-V. I'll make sure to just right click there and turn off. Click on turn off just to kind of deallocate the hard drive that is assigned to that VM. So maybe I can try this again. Click on Start. So let us see what it say. Make sure your kernel has been loaded successfully. So right now I keep getting this error message. So probably it's because we didn't restart our computer. So I'm going to pause this recording and restart the computer. So I'm going to click here. All right, so we have successfully restarted this computer. So now we are back to the Oracle VirtualBox Manager, and we will click on the domain controller 01, which is what we created to the left. So we'll click on that and we'll click on Start to start this domain controller installation. So remember, we connected the ISO. So what it's going to do is actually going to launch an operating system installation. So I'm going to say capture, and then I'm going to give it a few seconds and just allow it to start up. All right, so we are brought to the same exact screen as we saw when we were installing Windows Server 2022 in Hyper-V. So I'm just going to end this video here because you already know how to install Windows. So I will begin this video by searching for the installation file for VMware Workstation Pro. So if you don't already have the installation file for VMware Workstation Pro, I'll make sure to leave a link to a video in the video description down below on how you can download VMware Workstation Pro for free for personal use. So I'm just going to click in my search and I will open this software called Everything. Everything is just a software on my computer that can really do an extensive search. So I will just search for VMware. So it's already at the top. So I will just double click on it. And then I will click on yes. I will just minimize everything. So it's going to start the installation for VMware Workstation Pro. So I'm going to click on next. I will accept the end user license agreement and I will click on next. I will install Hyper-V platform. I will just click this little box to toggle it on and I will click on next. I will add VMware Workstation to the path. So I'll click next. I will keep the default options. If you would like to participate in the customer experience for VMware Workstation Pro, you can leave that option active. If not, you can opt out of it. But for me, I will just keep all the default there. I will just go to next. I will just deactivate creating desktop icon. And I will go to next. And I will click on install. I will give it a few seconds and allow VMware Workstation Pro to install on my computer. Once it has installed, I will make sure to restart my computer and then continue with the tutorial. All right, so the installation has successfully completed. If we were using VMware Workstation Pro for business use or for commercial use, then we will click on license to put in the license key. But because we are using it for personal use, we'll just click on finish and it will complete the installation. So I'm just going to click on finish and then I'm going to pause the video, as I said, restart my computer and then continue with the video. All right, so we have successfully restarted our computer. So what I'm going to do is to click in the search and type VMware, and then I'm going to click on VMware Workstation Pro. So I'll click on VMware Workstation Pro, and I will load it up. So for now, we have two options. So either enter a license. Again, you will enter a license here if you purchase it or you are going to use it for commercial use, you will have a license to put in. For us, we are just using it for personal use, so it is free for us. So we'll just choose the very first option, use VMware Workstation for personal use. I will click on continue, and then it tells us, thank you for using VMware Workstation. I will click on finish, and then the VMware Workstation window will open up. So once the window opens up, the first thing I want to do now is to create a virtual machine. Right in the middle of the screen, I have the option to create a new virtual machine. So I'm going to click on that. And then there are two options, right? So you can either use typical, which is recommended, or you can go to custom. So I will just keep it to typical and then go to next. At this point, it is asking us to connect the ISO image for our operating system, or I can install the operating system later. From my experience, usually with Windows Server, I don't know whether it's only with Server 2022, but when you connect the ISO image at this point and go through the wizard, it usually gives an error. So I like to install the operating system later. So I'll just choose that option and I will go to next. And there are different vendors for operating system. So we're going to install Windows Server 2022. So it's from Microsoft Windows. So we'll keep it to Microsoft Windows and then we'll come to the version. It's currently set to Windows 11. So we're just going to drop that down and look for Server 2022. So we have Server 2022 here in the list. So I'm just going to pick Server 2022 and I'm going to go to next. At this stage, similar to what we experienced with Hyper-V, this is just the name of the VMware file that will have the operating system. So that's the name we are putting here. So here we'll just force DC01, and then it is going to a default location on my drive D that I've already created before because I did a folder redirection. So I redirected my document folder from drive C, which is where it is by default. I put it on drive D. So that's why it is pointing to that document folder, and it's going to create a folder in that folder called virtual machine. And then within that virtual machine folder, another subfolder will be created called DC01, which is simply the name that I just put there for the virtual machine. And it's going to put all of the virtual machine files within that folder. So I'm okay with that location. And for you, it probably would be C:\documents. And then you click on next. By default, it is giving 60 gig hard drive. Again, it is not going to use this entire 60 gig. So the 60 gig, it is just the maximum hard drive space that can be used by your guest operating system, which is the Windows Server 2022. We can keep it to the 60 gig by default, or we can give it the same 127 gig that as we did with the Oracle VirtualBox and as we did with Hypervisor. So it doesn't really matter, but for the sake of it, let us just give it 127 just to have everything the same, right? So now we have two options to either store this as a single file or split it into multiple files. So it tells you that splitting the disk makes it easier to move the virtual machine to another computer, but may reduce performance with very large disks. So we have no plans of moving our virtual machine files to another computer. So I'm just going to say store as a single file. So I will just choose that option and go to next. So this is a summary of all of the settings that we selected. We can change them by clicking on customize, or we can just click on finish and it will finish. For any reason that we want to change any of the hardware settings, we can still come to edit virtual machine settings and we can modify the hardware settings here. So don't feel like what you selected through the wizard, that's what you are stuck with for the rest of the time you are using that virtual machine. You can always change things around. Okay, so we're just going to come here and then just as we did, remember we didn't attach the ISO image or the DVD for Windows Server 2022. It is not attached because we said we will install operating system later. So we're going to repeat the same thing we did in the previous two videos, which is to go to the CD/DVD and then click on ISO image, use ISO image file, and then click on browse. And then we go to our drive D. I'm just going to go to drive D. I'll go to this computer, go to drive D, go to downloads, and then I'll go to my KLA ISO images, pick my Server 2022 image and click on open. And then I'll click on OK. Now I have successfully connected the Windows Server 2022 ISO image to this particular VM. When I come over DVD, you can see the path, right? It shows you the name. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to just click on power on and then click on OK. And then it's press Enter key. I just press Enter key. Okay, so we are at the installation screen for installing Windows Server 2022. All right, so thank you very much for spending time going through the video and the various part of the video. The first part had to do with Microsoft Hyper-V and how you can install Server 2022. The second part had to do with how you can install Server 2022 in Oracle VirtualBox. And then the third part of this video had to do with how you can install Server 2022 on VMware Workstation Pro. So thank you for watching the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if there's someone who has interest in the content that we produce here on the channel, make sure to share this channel with them so that they can consider subscribing. If you have any questions about videos, ideas that you want us to make, or if you just have questions in general about the things that you learned in today's video, make sure to leave those in the comment section down below, and I will make sure to respond to them accordingly. But without further ado, take care, and I will catch you in the very next video. Bye.